It's been a long journey in the making, but Canadian hip-hop has finally made its mark on the world stage.
My mom's at home, bugging out, so it's great to be here, man, definitely.
With platinum recording artists like Drake and Kanon selling millions of records worldwide.
Canadian hip-hop is the new era.
Canadian hip-hop is the answer.
Canadian hip-hop is the final frontier. Canadian hip-hop is now.
Canadian hip-hop is...
Finally found some respect.
Our music can compare to anybody, and I don't think a lot of people's can compare to ours.
I don't want to say it's great, because it's bigger than just great, man.
The young people now that is spearheading hip-hop don't know where it came from. They know the American version, not the Canadian version.
In the spring of 2011, CBC Radio put on the first ever Canadian Hip-Hop Music Summit in tribute to the history of rap music in Canada. The T-Dot played host to one of the most magical hip-hop events held in the Great North, culminating with an unforgettable concert. Legendary pioneers of the game like Michie Mee, Maestro Fresh West, and the Dream Warriors took the stage with today's hottest artists like Cardinal and Kanon. It was an historic night for fans as well as the industry. Canadian hip-hop has come a long way in the past 25 years, with global artists like Kanon and Drake dominating world charts.
Being a kid from Toronto, I'm just proud, man.
But those in the know give real love and real respect to the artists that built the Toronto hip-hop industry, even when the city didn't want one.
Having all those obstacles for me in Canada was really, really a barrier.
If you ain't a strong cat, this could cripple you, man.
And the record labels just aren't responding.
No major label up here would touch us.
20-year-old Clinton Marshall murdered at a rap party.
Everybody thought it was going to wreck hip-hop.
Rapping is a form of poetry that's put towards music.
The beginning of the 1980s was an explosive era for music. With the emergence and influence of MTV and Much Music, it was only a matter of time that the most multicultural city in the world found a way to express its urban voice, hip-hop. Almost everyone remembers the first time they fell in love with hip-hop.
Rapper's delight.
Hip to the hop, to the hip of the hop.
Hip, hop.
You just don't stop.
When I heard the message, it was like, wow, these guys are putting it down on paper.
Between Planet Rock and Buffalo Girls, that was it for me.
Jam on It by the Nucleus Crew.
Backbone and Dropping the Needle.
It's so cliched, I hate to say it, but It Takes Two.
But what they didn't realize was the impact the culture would have on their lives.
Didn't know what it was, wasn't sure whether it was singing, talking. It was like, what is this thing, you know?
Good things go up in Ontario, don't you know?
I just thought it was just the most awesome thing ever. And that's really when I fell in love.
There's an energy, and you don't know why it is that you're drawn to it. You don't know what it is that's attractive about it, but there's some type of energy that you know you want to be a part of.
When I heard hip-hop, I was like, those words I can actually relate to and make my own.
We would dance to it, with no bias.
The way that it brought the community together, there wasn't a community center. The community center that we had, it wasn't open. The common denominator that brought our dreams together, just talking about, when we grow up, we want to do this, was hip-hop.
Arguably, the first rap record made in Canada was The Bum Rap by the Singing Fools in 1982. But the Toronto hip-hop movement didn't really progress until the launch of a local college radio program.
By this time, it's like, 83, 84, 85 kind of thing. And this guy, Ron Nelson, had this show on Saturday afternoon on CKLN, Fantastic Voyage from 1 to 4.
People loved it. They were from all different little walks of life. Because the culture was new and hip-hop was relatively a new experience for a lot of people, and the music wasn't commercialized, and it was very underground and very Americanized. The Fantastic Voyage program is what put everybody under the same umbrella for the very first time.
My older brother, he would always be blasting 88.1, and he would have it pumping.
Everybody sat by their radio,
between 1 and 4 to listen to Ron. It was just like so much more potent. Like when
it was almost religious.
People at that point couldn't get CKLN, the signal wasn't very strong, so people would go out of their way to listen. You know, we heard famous stories about people parking on an angle on a railroad track just to be able to tune in with coat hangers attached to the boom boxes. Whichever way it could be done, it had to be done.
I wouldn't be here or as well versed in what I do if it wasn't for the exposure that I was given by that show.
Back then, if it's not for DJs and college radio, which was DJs, none of that music would have came out.
People started demanding not only to hear the artists that I'm playing, but they wanted to see. And I look around saying, well, who else are bringing these people to town? And there wasn't anyone, so I started promoting and started bringing up these artists to town. Now we were able to gather physically under one roof and look around and say, hey, there's other people like us here. There's a lot of other people with cool taste. There are women here that are into hip hop.
I love hip hop.
The hip hop seed was firmly planted in the city and began to grow in the minds of local artists.
We had a four-piece band. It was a funk band. We were rehearsing on a regular basis in Rupert Gale's mom's basement. As we rehearsed, this young kid kept coming down, Rupert Gale's brother, who happens to be LA Love, right? He kept coming down and saying, you guys got to start recording hip hop. Hip hop is where it's at. You know, that's what's happening. So we said, great, let's start recording some hip hop.
And with that, Beat Factory Records was born and local rap artists started to take notice.
My crew, which was called T.O. Vice. Now, T.O. Vice, that's where T-Dot comes from. We were opening for the Americans when they would come here, like Kane and Biz and the Beastie Boys. So I was like, you know what? If I want to get up to that level, I need to be signed to a record label. I need to have my own records.
I was always trying to do my own little thing and get into the scene and meet the Ivan Berrys in terms of, can I get the mic? Can Brother Different share some light and get on the mic?
Ivan Berry was like, he became our manager. He used to manage me and Mishi.
I think that we were the first company that was recording rappers and making records of, you know, actually printing vinyl of rappers.
Ivan's like, he'll go into a business and he'll come in with a business suit with a hoodie on. You know what I mean? And Chucks on his feet. And they'll be like, who's this guy coming in like on this angle? And that's how Ivan attacked it. He's like a businessman with a hoodie.
With an infrastructure in place and with artists like Mishi Me and LA Love joining forces, Beat Factory was primed to carve a niche in the Canadian music market.
What is your problem?
But the Toronto hip-hop scene was on the verge of imploding when it had just begun.
Throughout the hip-hop era in the 80s, there were fights started happening. These were real fights, fist fights. And Ron, everybody thought it was going to wreck hip-hop.
They pretty well put us in the same category as the dance hall reggae scene that was going on at the time. The dance hall reggae scene profited off liquor. My scene, my hip-hop scene, there was no alcohol sold.
It wasn't about, you know, getting drunk and wasted.
These were innocent times. We were just loving music.
But Toronto's hip-hop movement was about to lose its innocence.
January the 10th, 1988, Flemington Park Community Center. 20-year-old Clinton Marshall murdered at a rap party.
It was scary when I seen him lying on the road with his face all battered up.
So the cops would see like 2,000 people gathered and
be outside on horseback and paddy wagons.
The stereotype was if you see 2,000 black people in one place, there's got to be something going on that's not legit.
Didn't like 3,000 people enjoying themselves listening to hip hop.
January the 10th, 1988, Flemington Park Community Center. 20-year-old Clinton Marshall murdered at a rap party.
It was scary when I seen him lying on the road with his face all battered up.
Before rap music had even established its roots in the city, a young 20-year-old patron at a rap concert was chased down and beaten to death, allegedly over a turf battle.
Throughout the hip-hop era in the 80s, fights started happening. And Ron, everybody thought it was going to wreck hip-hop. It was going to wreck a good thing, And so Ron wrote and recorded in our studio in Beat Factory this song called B-Boy Destruction.
Ron Nelson, well, he's been, talking about it and trying to do something about it.
All the people want peace, not violent cries. Hip hop, it's vital. Please don't ruin it. Your excitement is why I keep doing it.
It wasn't something designed to be a hit. I mean, it was more of a statement record.
Just let the party rock and the people have fun. Forget about the violence, knives and guns.
And again, it was a message saying, what we have is great. Let's not be destructive to the B-boy, to the B-boyism.
Hip-hop was mainly a misunderstood music in the early years, and it took the community and the authorities a little while before they really understood the message behind the music.
Hip-hop back then was truly the message and the poetry of all sorts of people, whether they liked it or not. It wasn't just for expressing the issues that one would face in low-income housing, whether it's political or social or just funny, It wasn't a black thing, Indians, whites, Chinese, all of them, as long as you embraced hip-hop and you understood and you accepted and appreciated what the message was about and what the movement was about, then you're welcome to the concert hall. Real simple.
After a while, the police backed off because they understood.
What most people didn't realize is that hip-hop had its own way of settling battles, not with fists, knives, or guns, but with microphones.
Before guys go out there and fight, they say, yo, man, let's battle, and they'll pick up 2 microphones instead of picking up 2 guns. People don't never see that side of rap. Instead, they always want to see the stabbings and the killings and the robbings and all that other stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Surprisingly, a 15-year-old Toronto female was already considered the undisputed queen of the concert hall rap battle.
I'm the Jamaican, taking charge and living large and big time, going for mine, I just barge.
Missy would be rapping.
I'll make this real short and step right to you. What I'm gonna do, you know what's gonna do you.
And the crowd would be into it, and it's a neck-and-neck battle tie, and then she would just drop a verse of reggae.
Push up your one if you want Jamaican man. You know your back, you can't take the sun long. All this up how you are as a Calvin.
And the crowd will lose it.
It's over,
And she would just win because she did that. American rapper just walks off the stage.
I'm watching this girl and I'm like, who is this girl?
Misha used to kind of use it as a concealed weapon.
Who does she think she is?
Just to hear that distinct voice coming from that beautiful package with that hardness, that's a wrap.
We didn't know that we were supposed to be inferior to someone coming from the U.S. that was doing the music, even though we heard it from the U.S.
As a Jamaican female raised in the Jane and Finch neighborhood, Michelle McCulloch, or Michie Me, developed a unique style and swagger that resonated with the hip-hop community, both in Toronto and in the United States. At the early age of 13, she decided that hip-hop was her calling and took an adventurous trip to New York City.
So got some fake ID, went to Latin Quarters to learn about hip hop. That was the big place for everybody who wanted to know about hip hop. There was KRS-One there. There was Scott LaRock. That's who I really met, and I was trying to prove to him that we were from Canada and there was some hip hop in Canada. I was like, shut up, y'all don't rap in Canada. There ain't no hip hop in Canada. And you a female, you really gonna? And I was like, yeah. And I started spitting in front of Latin Quarters, and he just thought I was, hey yo, Chris, hey yo, Chris. And he called people over, and that's how I met BDP at Latin Quarters. That was when my career really took off.
Michie signed her first U.S. deal in 1988 and became part of the Ladies First collaboration, which included stars like MC Lyte and Queen Latifah.
She was the first artist from Canada to get a major deal in America.
When she did her thing with BDP and stuff, like to us,
the biggest hip-hop artist in the world at the time, KRS-One, introducing you on stage? I'm like, yo, let me get back into the booth, man.
Michelle's success inspired a whole generation of Canadian MCs, including a young man named Wesley Williams from Scarborough, Ontario.
Without Michie, there'd be no me. Understand? I'm saying that's Michie me. I realized this is what I wanted to do from like when I was 11. All the break dancers, they were cool, but they were getting all the chicks. So I said, let me try my rhymes to see if I'm nice. And the chicks started feeling me, so it was a good feeling.
Maestro was a little different in the sense that he was a little off You know, he did things different than everybody else. He didn't move in the same pack, the same league, the same crew. So there's a lot of people that were trying to diss him and stuff, you know, but he didn't listen to any of them.
So one day I was working the Parkway Mall security guard, writing my rhymes, I was working the graveyard shift. And then one of the stores was Tuxedo Royale, man. So I go, yo, Maestro Fresh West. That's my title, son. And that was it. I remember telling girls, like, yo, my new name is Maestro Fresh West. I remember this girl I was chopping, she was like, I told her that, and she just dropped the phone laughing. And I remember her telling her sister, yo, he's called himself Maestro Fresh West, ha!
Even with a unique name, look, and style, major Canadian record labels were still reluctant to get into the rap game.
The Canadian labels were fronting on me from day one. They wanted me to sound like Fresh Prince or like Bobby Brown when we were trying to be innovators instead of assimilators. And so yeah, this small little New York company gave me the opportunity and signed me, LMR Records. So that's what blew up everything. It was US money that helped propel my career.
And in 1989, Maestro released his debut single, Let Your Backbone Slide. It became an instant top 40 hit, and the rest, as they say, is history.
This is a throwdown, a showdown. Hell no, I can't slow down. It's gonna go. First offense.
A rapper in a tuxedo, come on. What's not cool about that?
Black tuxedo. What?
Toronto, make some noise!
I remember the first time I saw them on Electric Circus, dancing with the dancers, and I remember it was a big deal for all our friends. Like, everyone taped it, and people would watch it over and over again. That was the first time when everyone was like, wow, there's a rock star / hip-hop star in our country, and he's, like, cool and kind of mean-looking, but seems like he'd be, like, a nice guy, too. It was, like, really strange.
Then the album came out. Big up to Farley Flex. Farley was really adamant towards us trying to get an album deal. Album came out, changed the whole scape of everything.
This jam is amplified, so just glide. And let your backbone slide.
Now there is a new Canadian rap contender who says he's going to change all that.
People, I mean, they can't fit into the malls. There are like 7,000 young women coming to see you.
Well, you know, I must be doing something right, you know, comes with the territory.
The Maestro didn't sound Canadian. Even when you listen to it now, it's definitely a record that could have came out anywhere in the world at the time it came out.
I remember seeing that video and being like, this dude's Canadian, like, this is better than most American rap. Wow, I could do this, like, this exists, there's life on this planet, hip-hop planet.
I'm the guy, the rhythm is the rock, so glide to the fresh side, I let your backbone slide. Toronto, make some noise!
He was looked at almost as kind of the guy that was safe to listen to. Parents that had a problem with hip-hop probably didn't have a problem with Maestro.
Hopefully, I've inspired, let's say, Canadian music industries to hook up Canadian rap artists. So maybe by 91, you'll see Canadian rap artists come out on Canadian label.
With two powerhouse acts like Maestro Fresh West and Michie Me leading the way, it appeared inevitable that the Canadian rap industry was on the verge of exploding. But unfortunately for the movement, one of its shining stars was about to face her toughest decision.
If you have this baby, is this baby going to ruin your chances from what you started out and left university for?
With the arrival of the 90s came new hope for Canadian hip-hop, with two superstar rappers ready to spearhead the movement.
People, I mean, they can't fit into the malls. There are like 7,000 young women coming to see you.
Well, you know, I must be doing something right, you know, comes with the territory.
Maestro Fresh West's debut single was a smash hit with mainstream audiences, and Michie Me broke new ground as the first Canadian rapper to sign a US record deal. Things looked extremely bright until Michie was forced to make the toughest decision of her life.
Becoming a mother is for real. If you have this baby, is this baby going to ruin your chances from what you started out and left university for? Is this the way to go? You leave university to do music, and then you have a baby, and then that interferes with your music. So, I had to get my priorities straight. So he just made it that much more real.
In the end, Michelle McCulloch made a decision from the heart.
My first love and my true love is the music. And then I had my son. He is the greatest love of my life, and I'm glad I didn't take his.
But she wasn't the only one facing hard choices at the time. Fresh off a platinum debut, Maestro's second release in '91, The Black Tie Affair reached gold status with only 50,000 units sold. leaving West feeling frustrated with the Canadian hip-hop scene.
There's no industry. That's probably one of the hardest things. People want to pretend that there's an industry, but it's not. I can't exceed what I did in 89. It's frustrating. And I said, I hit a glass ceiling. So let me just see what we can do in America and just introduce myself instead of reintroduce myself, introduce. So I ain't gonna come with no tuxedo and a bow tie.
Even with the current king of Canadian hip-hop departing for bigger opportunities in New York City, the movement could not be stopped. A whole new generation of hip-hop artists was emerging. Enter the Dream Warriors in 1991 with their debut album.
My definition of a boombastic jazz style.
I was in the bathroom at concert hall taking a pee.
Suffer.
And Lou came in and said, yo, you're Ivan Berry. You know, I said, yeah. And he rapped this song called Voyage Through the Multiverse. At that moment, I just thought it was weird, weird.
Here we go, are you ready for one another? Dream Warriors noise is new, discover all. Once again with a new blend, so telephone a friend. Yo, Dream Warriors back, we're right here, people. As you pump your fist, I'm talking all that jazz. Now what's my definition? What? My definition. Yeah, my definition.
At the same time, Mishi had a whole, we used to tour Canada, like back and forth. I brought him on as a hype man for Mishi Me. And he, up to today, is still the dopest hype man I've ever seen. Because he was just full of energy and it worked so well.
My style is a weapon, you had to record.
Mishi Me. And then they would, you know, collaborate and write songs together. And he became a critical part of Beat Factory through Mishi. Then he started telling me that he has his own group. So I said, well, let's go in the studio and record some stuff. And one of the songs he recorded was called Wash Your Face in My Sink.
You wash your face in my sink, You wash your face in my sink.
Wash Your Face in My Sink was the first Dream Warriors single, introducing the world to a new fusion of hip-hop and jazz.
I just thought it was brilliant, but the songs I was really scared of. Not scared in a bad way, but scared that the world wasn't ready.
To Ivan's surprise, Wash Your Face in My Sink became an international hit, especially in the UK, where record album sales spawned a sold-out European tour, selling over 800,000 units worldwide.
First video for a Dream Warrior is like a first baby for a woman. Right.
It ended up being his first single, and a huge single.
Huge. I mean, internationally, probably the biggest act of that era.
Everybody went crazy from something like a Wash Your Face in My Sink.
You were the most played record on Radio 1 last week, more than Madonna, man.
And who else?
And Phil Collins.
And
Iron Maiden.
Oh, yeah.
And Vanilla Ice. And Vanilla Ice.
The acts that's touring with us and opening up for us was Gangstar. And we started doing songs with people like Diggable Planets because we inspired them.
There is no definition.
We did shows with Run DMC, Tribe Called Quest at the time, and it's like we were just as powerful as them, just right out the gate. So it was really interesting to see there was a place where you can actually do your craft and not be held back just because you are Canadian.
As massive as the Dream Warriors were overseas, the unique sound wasn't fully appreciated back home.
So when I first heard the Wash Your Face on My Sink, I was like, what the hell is this?
England had a fascination with the Dream Warriors, and maybe they had a different taste than what we did, but in Canada it was misunderstood as to why the Dream Warriors were hot.
A lot of people don't realize this. Dream Warriors have sold the most hip-hop records globally. Nobody has ever sold 1 million records worldwide as a Canadian rap act. Drake just took the title. 20 years later.
But for some reason, the Canadian massive didn't fully appreciate the Dream Warriors style, and the album only sold 50,000 units in their own backyard. Perhaps Canadian hip-hop fans were looking for a sound that was a little more grassroots.
Yeah, we're gonna set it off. What?
From the spark of creation, we elevating for a life divine. But these streets stay full of crime.
Economical, that political struggle that we go through, it's always been embased with social commentary. That was a must for us.
These guys, they were the hardcore cats, and they would tell you the struggles of what's going on in some of the neighborhoods here in Toronto.
Ghetto Concept, those guys are super talented. Some of the first guys that I paid so much respect to.
Canadian hip-hop at that point was very commercialized, and that was the only stuff that was mainstreamly available. So I'm kicking back in my crib in Rexdale, watching Much Music, and I see this dude from Woodbridge, Frank Morello, come with Brothers of the Ghetto. That was the name of his group, Frank Morello and Brothers of the Ghetto. And it's funny, even starting from scratch was the DJ at that time. Yeah. So I'm looking at him like, who's this dude talking about Brothers from the Ghetto? We the ones, we from the hood. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm from Rexdale, he from Jungle. Yeah. So that's where that name, Ghetto Concept, I was like, yo, move up. Ghetto Concept time now.
Yeah. They formed not just a group, but an organization and a company. And they understood we had to do business. They understood we had to develop artists. They understood we had to produce our own material, write our own material, and we had to quality control everything we put out.
Formed in 1989, Ghetto Concept released 3 albums in short order, filling a void in the Canadian hip-hop scene.
Of those records, there was a record called Certified, and Certified took over the radio airwaves. And that first record won us a Juno. It was amazing because we weren't mainstream, right? So everybody was just like, all right, let's see what these guys are gonna do with it now. So we took that fuel and we worked on a new record called Easy on the Motion. That record exploded. That was actually the first Canadian record on BET.
They were the epitome of streets gone commercial.
And it was amazing because with all those hits and Juno Awards and everything, no major label up here would touch us. Nope. Nobody. Everybody was like, nah, we can't, we don't really see it. And so we had to do the independent hustle.
Maybe the record labels were looking in another direction, something that was a little friendlier and safer for the Canadian market.
My bike ain't broke, don't need my mags. Don't need my mags. Never got time for the efficiency.
When I got my first label deal, it was controversial. There was this young act. That group was called Organized Rhyme. Tom Green.
Check the OR, you like it so far, smack your back and you deal with a deep scar.
The first 10 years of Canadian hip-hop launched a handful of great talent. We had a king, we had a queen, and the Dreamers. And even though they had to go to the US and overseas to find success, a seed had been planted and was growing in Toronto neighborhoods. But for some reason, the big record companies were still reluctant to dive into the rap game. A&M Records gave Ivan Berry a record deal to sign and develop one local hip-hop artist. And his decision was somewhat controversial.
Check the OR, you like it so far. Check the OR, you like it so far.
I had this crazy idea that if I broke Organized Rhyme, because of their color, their music, it's a little bit funny.
Check the OR.
That would open the door for a lot more of my serious hip-hop acts.
I feel lonely, so I'll lay low.
So there was some controversy, but nobody stopped to think the intent was a good one. We always wanted rap to go commercial. It was our dream. It was also somewhat of a detriment to the art form.
Needless to say, Organized Rhyme's existence was short-lived, but the talent brewing in Toronto was not. And in 1996, Ivan got another shot with EMI Music.
And there was so much talent in 1996, I couldn't sign one person. I thought that if I dumped hundreds of thousands of dollars behind one act, the act will be successful, but the scene will still not be developed. He said, we're gonna do compilation album. Out of Rap Essentials 1 were people like Chocolate, Down to Earth, Mathematics, Madlocks, Danny O, Ghetto Concept, Rascals, and Cardinal.
Because I go all around the world and I represent nothing but this place that we call the T-Dot, always keeping it hot from Scarborough to the west end. You don't know that's the best head. Everything in between from region all the way up to Vaughan. You don't know what's going on. Can I get a gun finger in the air right now? Let them know where you from. T-Dot, rep it everywhere I go. Everybody from the cold. This is what we call it. If you're from Toronto, hands up. I'm from the T-Dot, rep it everywhere I go.
The energy this kid has is just incredible. Like, he's the livest performer out of the city. He's our Busta Rhymes. He brings that much energy, even probably more.
Showmanship, ridiculous. Master of ceremony.
One of the best performers I've seen in hip-hop, period.
Go to a Cardi stage show, you'll fall in love with Cardinal Official. Remember me tell her that.
Cardi, he'll do his MCing, and then he'll do his reggae as well. But then his performance on the next level is just like, who can mess with that?
You knew where Ice Cube was from, you knew where Ice-T was from, you knew where EPMD was from, where Public Enemy was from. Everybody that came out, you just knew where they were from. That was what you did. So it was like, for me, I couldn't wait to come out so that I could let people know where I was from.
I come from an era where Cardinal, back in my younger days, when my music was not as nice as it should have been, T-Dot crowds let you know that's where Bacardi slang came from. If your shit wasn't fresh, you get buckled and booed and take off the stage. Bad to the bone, everything like a 2-3 zone.
Raised in Toronto's Flemington Park, Jason Harrow grew up in the early years of Canadian hip-hop, listening to the likes of Maestro and Michie Mee. He fell in love with the art form and the music at an early age.
I always remember music just being a part of who I was. That's when the best music is made, is when it just really comes from a place where you're not really thinking about it, you know what I mean, where it kind of just flows out of you. I think that's the best type of expression.
He had this thing, like Michie, the perfect blend of what a Caribbean immigrant was living in Canada.
I remember her coming to Flemington Park one time, and we were all little kids, and she was shooting some video or something at the basketball court, and they had like this fly red car, some kind of sports car was out there, and it was the dopest thing. We didn't even look at her like she was a female MC. She was just dope, period. Michie Mee is probably one of the biggest influences in terms of my style of music.
And Michie's style was one that could not be silenced or forgotten. Even with acting and television hosting credits under her belt, it was inevitable that the Queen would return.
My bass player / engineer that did all my hip-hop records, Walter, called me down to Wellesley Studio. He said they had a track for me to go on. When I heard it, that had guitars like crazy. Don't wanna be your slave, then I'm not gonna take it how you... When they heard me on the track, I was in. And then when we took it on its feet, the audience and the crowd that we drew, it was crazy. And it was a whole new ball game across Canada, and there was a lot of love. I was still spitting, I was still doing reggae dance. You know, to me, the music was different, but the fact that they understood me, and when I said certain things, they jumped with me. I was like, it doesn't matter about the music, it is the writing, and it is what I'm saying, and you do relate because you jump the same times I want you to jump. They never seen it, they never heard it before, so imagine seeing it for the first time. And I did more rock records in terms of albums and toured more with rock than I did with hip hop.
With rock still king in the Great White North, who would have thought that the Guess Who would play a part in the comeback of the godfather of Canadian hip hop?
These eyes.
Artists don't really talk about this, but when you have a hit record, it affects you psychologically. Everybody's feeling you, you know what I'm saying? Then all of a sudden, nobody's feeling you. It's not normal to have a record out and everybody's sweating you. When you go from not bad looking, good looking to gorgeous, because you got a record, it's not easy sometimes. I remember when Backbone Slide came out, I didn't feel myself. I did not feel myself. I felt numb for years, it's like, and then it goes away, and then you feel like It's like you go through withdrawal. If you ain't a strong cat, this could cripple you, man. It could really cripple you.
Big up to Randy Bachman, Burton Cummins. Yo, everybody, come on. You moving side to side, come on.
That song was my most important song to me because that solidified my career. If I didn't have Stick to Your Vision, people might have tried to say one-hit wonder and forget about all the other work that's been done. Like, wait a minute, he had certs, he had fine-tuned the mic, he had all those joints, he had conducting things, you know what I mean? And it kind of was a nice 10-year summary.
Seen a lot of pain with the fame. Seen a lot of highs and lows, but yo, I see my name written in lights. I seen a lot of things.
When I say stick to your vision, that means whatever you do, you strive for greatness.
With that message, Canadian hip-hop's pursuit of greatness was on the verge of a giant leap forward. A young man named Kareem Blake was about to take the torch as the great hope for the movement.
Choclair just got signed. He's the first Canadian artist signed to a major label. He just won the Juno, so now the pressure comes. What is his record gonna be like? Is he gonna be good?
A misunderstood movement from its inception, the Canadian hip-hop scene had come a long way in the past few decades with an explosion of global recognition and new talent. But the Canadian music industry was still apprehensive, and the hopes of an entire movement rested on the shoulders of a young MC from Scarborough.
I'm from the city to die, the east side, the borough. When I'm on the mic, yo, I'm coming real thorough.
Something that just kind of grabbed me was hip-hop. A friend of mine knew Sox. Me and Sox kind of just became cool, like we just clicked. I'm dropping demos off here, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and the record labels just aren't responding. It's like you gotta know somebody to get in there, and I don't know anybody. So I was like, forget all of this. I just would rather go and start my own label.
They were running Knee Deep Records. We were pressing vinyl on our own.
Knee Deep's first record was a track called 21 Years that was featured on Rap Essentials Volume 1. His second release, What It Takes, was a collaboration with a young, up-and-coming R&B singer named Julie Black.
Well, lo and behold, the song ends up winning a Juno. So we were like, well, we need to put this out, because it wasn't even out.
I'm here with Choclair at the Juno Awards. He won last night Best Rap Recording. How does it feel?
It feels really good, feels really good. And the major record companies started to take notice.
On the 24th of June, 1998, I signed with Virgin. Now the pressure's on, because now they're like, Choclair just got signed. He's the first Canadian artist signed to a major label. So now the pressure comes. What is his record gonna be like? Is he gonna be good?
The time had finally arrived that a major Canadian record label was backing homegrown talent. But would the masses from both sides of the border take to Choclair's style?
People hear me coming, so haters got mad work, but understand it's all about the swab to get
A style that was very smooth and clean cut.
If you want to get down, then we can all just.
Choclair was probably, of all the top artists or popular artists, he was probably the only one that was straight up beats and rhymes. You know, everyone else did something else.
He's got like a steady flow. Hip-hop doesn't have to be complicated all the time, you know, and I think in most instances it's better if it's not. And I think he has that ability to just be simple and come with something that feels good. It's easy to like Choclair.
I am the just knocking, y'all can't do this. Been here and there, been everywhere, been all around the world with solitaire.
Russ Hergert came out to one of the dates. And he comes in my room and he's shaking his head. He's like, I'm like, what happened, man? What happened? He's like, it's just not working. I was like, what are you talking about? What's happening? And then he puts his smile on his face. This guy, you know how many records you sold in the first week? And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, so now the phones are ringing like bananas.
Tell me, did the type of thing that the mothers can't done. Choclair, the man, go run.
In a matter of weeks, Choclair went gold in Canada and earned critical acclaim in the US. The record label was happy, and it looked as if the Canadian hip-hop movement finally broke through. Unfortunately, the entire music industry was experiencing its most difficult era ever, and Choclair and the label parted ways. But like time and time again in the history of Canadian hip-hop, the movement proved resilient, and a whole new generation of rap artists were ready to take charge.
As things grow, as new buds come on the tree, then it gives perspective to buds that were there before.
Toronto's eclectic and diverse culture had produced its most eclectic and diverse son.
I love guitars, I love bands, so I love taking live music and trying to make it sound like sampled music. The sound is just chasing an aesthetic that hip-hop created, but now you have all these great musicians around you to actually play those things from scratch.
Oh, Toronto, here we come, right back where we started from.
Chaos is a real musical genius. Yeah. He's a genius. He's on another plane, another level.
You know, you have a song with Socks, and the chorus goes, I've been on the run, my shadow weighs a ton.
I've been on the run, the shadow weighs a ton. It's starting to make sense to me.
But why is it called, like, I wish I met Natalie Portman? He is a different cat altogether, right?
I can't really make you love me, no, I can't really make you love me.
Chaos is Mr. I hate the music game, I love the music game, I am the music game. Chaos is fearless in being creative and just being himself.
Hey yo, get to step in. Your tongue is like a weapon.
Singer-songwriter, he's like the Canadian Lauryn Hill.
He ain't just trying to make music, I think trying to make a contribution to this art.
In their closet, animals strike, curious poses. They feel the heat between us.
I feel like he makes accessible songs about meaningful things.
I'm like a man in the moon when we kiss and you soon.
Look what hip-hop has become now. It's a singing, rapping, popish type of world right now. It's generally accepted that that's the way it is. Black people don't own it anymore. Everybody owns it. It's colorless.
I know about the recipe, and you know I can't really make you love me. No, you know I can't really make you love me.
The global ambassador of Canadian hip-hop today is Chaos, Cardinal. Kanon, and certainly Drake is a megastar.
The meaning of the music that we play, that we used to be so proud to say is on the ground, it's like we got to forget that mentality. We don't want it to be on the ground necessarily anymore.
Now, this generation of guys have taken it to a next level. So to see Drake's success, to see Cardinal's success, to see Kanon's success, to see Chaos's success, my dream has come true.
Hip-hop has come to a time now where it is old enough, where the successful people today was brought up in hip-hop. You know, these are the young executives of today, the young fashion designers, the young photographers, filmmakers, etc. were influenced by hip-hop back then. You know, people don't give the true props to what hip-hop has contributed to one's life.
We all recognize what it takes to get where we gotta go.
You know, it's good to look back to see what we did and the history of what we did back in the day. But as we speak right now, we in good hands, man.
Canadian hip-hop is the final frontier.
Canadian hip-hop is alive, well, and blessed.
Canadian hip-hop is the future of hip-hop. That's what's up.
With over a quarter century of Canadian contribution to the global hip-hop movement behind us, there's no telling how far this young generation of rap artists will take us. And that's a brief history of the Toronto hip-hop movement. So far.
She got hot nookie step 2, get in if I let you. Hot girl with rep 2, different than those who met you. I bet you never find another, I sweat you. Head to get you, hot step with the step 2, grinding like heavy and petty with good timing. Nobody's perfect, they're perfectly fine. The bad man them know me, the big man know me. Missy, oh you get so big, a bad man show me.
From the days of 1986, Cardinal official wanted to be in the mix. From the day straight up going to concert hall, couldn't afford to go out, so I would bang against the wall. Hope for one day to see Missy me and Maestro. Couldn't go out, so I ate my rice and waited till the next year. Year after that, then I went to concert hall and seen Quadro and them rap. When I seen the man rock the mic, I said, Bomba Cloud, that whole thing sound tight. So I had to get on the mic and do my thing. And then I had to put on my Cardinal swing. Doing the biz dance anytime I flow. Have to represent up to the top of Toronto. The T-Dot, K-Force made that. But then the circle we came and then we blazed that. CBC, I hope you got my check. Peace out to next year, one love, respect.